man. Well, we're here, Wenzel said, trying to keep our spirits up. His tone told me otherwise. Something was wrong. Our eyes met via the rear-view window briefly, and they told me everything I needed to know. Keep an eye on them. It's not safe. Great, we're fucked, I thought. Wenzel walked Mum, Jonathan and Jodie to their room, which was next to Caroline's and mine, whilst we waited in a dark hallway. Mum's was right at the end, next to a toilet. Her door at the bottom left had been kicked in and boarded up badly. There were men in the hall huddled together, two small groups, but could have sworn I was being watched. One door was intact. It was thin wood with gold numbers on it. It was brown and stained with liquid. Wenzel came back. "It's only a few days," he said, opening our door. We went in, and Caroline stood by the window. I remembered what Wenzel meant when he looked at me earlier. I walked around the thin single mattress on the floor. No slats, no base, no furniture, no pillows, no TV, just a single stained mattress, some burnt out candles with no holders. They'd been wedged in the gaps of the floorboards. "We'll be okay," I said, looking deep into his eyes. "It will be okay," I repeated. He stood for maybe 20 seconds holding my gaze, then tapped my arm, his one and only show of genuine acknowledgement that I existed in a positive way, and said, "No, we're not staying here, no." We were in and out of that hotel inside 10 minutes flat, and I was for the first time pleased to get back into the car. It's around now I started to notice Caroline was different. At calls she was happy and, well, herself again, but around Wenzels she had a stony, hollow expression. She had it now in the car, staring straight ahead, not paying attention to traffic or Jonathan or me, just hollow, staring through the back of the front seat. I lost track of the time we spent in the car. I don't remember food or washing around this time at all. I just know we travelled a lot. Then out of nowhere we had a house to go to. Wenzel had used his old house to get in exchange with someone on an estate in Rochdale. The house had a front and back garden and windows that slid up to open them. I liked it. It wasn't home, but I liked it. We soon got used to the new routine. Wenzel was relatively placid as he claimed benefits because of his back and rarely moved. Bernie was running around doing everything for him, and us kids not doing a thing in case we upset him. "Can I go out?" I asked Mum. She said yes. Wenzel said no. I stayed put. Wenzel looked at me. "Your mother said yes," he said. It was a trick. I stayed put. "Off you go," he said. I was out the door like a rocket, but not before I'd caught a glimpse from Jonathan and Caroline watching me leave. Okay, I wanted friends. How do I get them? Stand around until someone talks to me, I guess. That's how I met Lee and Michael, so that should do it. I saw a group of lads on skateboards down the road. This was an adventure. I knew nobody, and there was no danger, right? Wrong. I stood around for a few seconds until once someone said, "New guy." I made small talk about the skateboard until one asked what I did in Macclesfield. I explained about the Aikido and what Alan had taught me. I'd been in the local paper with my club. Next mate, this lad is asking me to show him some throws. I show him one, and he says, "I can get out of that." I replied that there's always a counter. "Show me," he said. I go to throw him and wallop. I'm on the floor and I'm taking punches, 4, maybe 5, before he steps back and kicks at my legs. "Street smarts," he laughs, tapping his temple. His mates join in the laughter. I stood up. "I think he wants some more," one quips. "New boy thinks he's hard," another pipes up. I made it to my door and closed it behind me with 4 lads running fast. "You're back quick," Wenzel says. "It's cold out," I replied, and ran upstairs to clean up. It wasn't more than a couple of days after that, and Bernie had gone all quiet again. She was starting to shake visibly. She's not had a drink in ages, I thought. Wenzel was pacing. "They found us. It's your fucking fault." His crutches miraculously vanished and were replaced with a solitary walking stick he never once leant on. "Pack up," he shouted. "Not again," Bernie said, screeching the word again. "They've just settled," she answered, referring to the kids. "Don't fucking answer me back. Pack up," he stormed, pointing at her. Bernie was heading up the stairs with her head down, before he'd even finished the sentence. We were on the road again. Second property we'd given up. What was Wenzel running from? At the time we were told it was Clive, that he tried to kill your dad. He's still looking for him. He has a hit out on him. We knew what that meant. Bye, Dad. What we didn't know was why. Years later there was speculation, that I can't prove. Said it was because Wenzel accused Leslie of abusing Caroline instead of telling Clive. Like Mac rules dictate should have happened. He'd gone to the police instead, and nobody grasses. They'd go to Clive, Alan or Pat. And as Alan and Pat were dead, it should have gone straight to Clive. Later, I'd also hear it was because Wenzel wouldn't lend him his car, because Wenzel had hit Bernie and was planning on moving away. Rumours were rife, and facts were like ghosts. I'd later hear it from the horse's mouth. It was actually because Wenzel didn't take care of Alan when I moved in with him. Wenzel was supposed to make sure he took his pills, and Clive saw that as the ultimate betrayal to his mum Pat. Clive had done nothing when Alan passed, and nothing again when Wenzel accused Leslie. However, when Clive found out Wenzel was having an affair, he lost his temper. He'd been in the car a few days, after another visit to the homeless people's unit. Same story, just in a different area. I'm in danger. My wife's seen Clive in the street we live. We need housing. I've got 4 children. The answer was also the same. You made yourself intentionally homeless. We cannot help you. This basic circle would continue into huge constructs, but would be essentially the exact same conversation, whilst we sat stock still on plastic chairs in the waiting room. I desperately wanted to walk because I'd been cramped up in the car all day, but we weren't allowed. The weather had turned colder as well, so now my previously roasting window was freezing to the touch. Jonathan had taken to kicking out in his sleep, and my shoulder would touch the window, so I'd wake up. Ever since that fall at Uncle Carl's, when it gets cold, my shoulder lets me know. That was something else too. I never slept in any sort of real sense. My sleep from as young as I can remember, until I lived alone, was so light that a letter could come through the letterbox. I'd be at the door as it hit the floor. Mrs. Daly, your children are terribly well behaved. They can play with the toys, you know. Wenzel was immediately at Bernie's side, wanting to know what was said, but not asking. Bernie, knowing the drill as well as I did. Is it okay? She said to Wenzel. He said yes, and Jonathan was off playing with toys. Caroline and I didn't move. We knew better. Ignore Wenzel at home meant a beating, but embarrass him in the street, we'd pay for it for days. Jonathan wouldn't get the beating for playing with the toys, but someone would. Either Mum or us. He held Mum's hand when we left the homeless persons unit. I recall it vividly. He never held her hand. I got closer and realised why. He was crushing her fingers. He used to do that to me if someone asked me a question, and I remained quiet for too long. Squeeze. My knuckles often felt like they'd been bust, even though they hadn't. He loved his power games. Say mercy, he'd say at home, pulling my fingers back and forcing me to the floor. Well, give in, he'd ask. We had this routine quite often. It was always with me. I figured it happened when he hadn't hurt someone in a while. I'd exhausted every tactic. At first I'd go with it until it hurt and try and pull away, but he'd not let go until I said mercy. They'd apply more pressure for a few seconds afterwards, and then let go. When I got wise to that, as soon as he touched me, I'd just say mercy. That was a bad idea though, because then he'd say, "What? I can't hear you," until I said it louder, and he'd repeat, "What? I still can't hear you." Each time we would apply more pressure, until he chose to let go. My screaming excited him, and yet it didn't matter if I screamed or not. He would do what he wanted. My way I don't recommend. However, it worked for me. Don't say a fucking thing. Don't whimper, don't show pain, don't cry, don't run, and don't flinch. A flinch excites these types of people. So he'd grab my fingers and pull me around. I'd remain calm and stone-faced looking at the floor. I tried to make it look natural, unaffected. The truth, however, is that I was checking the ground for where I was going to fall. Where exactly he'd make me hit the floor, which he did at least twice during the game. When I felt too much pain in my palm, where the bone in the finger wants more room to bend but doesn't have it, I'd breathe slowly, trying to minimize the pain. It was always very bad, and I was forever telling myself, I'm okay, doesn't hurt, I'm okay, doesn't hurt, over and over. Often I'd go into my own little world where I was with Alan, but that would upset me and make me angry. So I'd come back again, thud, the floor would hit me, as he'd pull my fingers straight down fast. I'd use my free arm to take the fall and be up on my ankles straight away. I knew the game. If it wasn't, my fingers would be wrenched upwards and turned, so I'd have my back to him and my fingers being in agony. By being up fast, I could move with it, when I thought he would actually let me go, and his face was a good indicator of how much he was enjoying my pain. If he looked to be enjoying it, I'd say mercy. He'd let me go. If he wasn't enjoying it, there was no point in me saying mercy. The trick was to act in pain, but not too much, and to say mercy at the right time. I let myself down only once. We'd played his game earlier and got stopped for dinner. Yeah, he actually thought it was a game, and Bernie saw it as a game too, despite her knowing the pain that I knew. Weird? No, not really. If we consider had either I or Bernie questioned him, his game would have been played with us. By saying it's a game, we justified it as okay, and therefore neither of us were guilty of letting a bad thing happen. He'd said something to Bernie. I can't recall what it was, but I'd answered him back. Come here, he said. I did, and he held his hand out. He wanted me to be scared of putting my flat hand into his, and I was. I was fucking terrified. But I wasn't letting him know that. As soon as his hand was open, I placed my hand in his. Say mercy, he said softly as he pulled me to the floor. No, I replied, with the same tone as his. He threw me around that room like a rag doll until he was screaming, Say mercy! And I was screaming, No! This went on for what seemed like forever. My jaw hit the floor at one point, and I grabbed it with my left hand to hold it on. It was fine, but it hurt like hell. I curled up, but he still had my arm. Say mercy, he shouted. No, I replied. The next second I was face down over his lap, arm up my back, and the fire hit my shoulder. Say mercy, say mercy. Mercy, I replied. Say, sir, please let me go, he said. I repeated it, and he threw me to the floor. I was in a lot of pain. More than that, I was disgusted with myself. I'd let him win. I'd let him make me cry. I vowed that day that he would never know my pain again. I am Alan's son, and Alan doesn't quit, I told myself. So when I saw him take Mum's hand, crushing it as she walked, I knew two things. One, she was in for it tonight. And two, I had to keep my fucking head down. Chapter 16. Thankfully, I don't recall what happened that night. I do remember going back to Rochdale to get more things from the house, though. Wenzels sat outside in the car and sent Bernie in. He wanted to be able to make a quick getaway if he saw Clive around, and believed Clive wouldn't hurt Bernie as he's her brother. He looked over his shoulder every 10 seconds. I asked why we were running. Do you want me dead? Clive will fucking kill me. You'd like that, wouldn't you? It was another trick. I won by not replying. This is how I managed some degree of control for myself, by telling myself when I earned a win and when I made a loss. A loss meant I had to change something next time. There was always a next time. A win meant I had not got hurt, or I'd made him believe I was hurt. At best, it meant I'd found a way not to play his game. I knew if I'd said no, he'd have called me a liar and I'd be punished for lying. If I said yes, it would throw him for a few seconds, but I'd take a worse beating. I lowered my head as he turned around to look at me. Yeah, cunt, you'd fucking love it, he said, looking at Jonathan, as if to say, go on, tell your mum, dare you. Bernie came out with a bin bag after bin bag full as we sat there while she piled it into the car with us, which meant much less room. We were car-bound for around a week before we were placed on Lacey Green in Wimslow, a bed and breakfast run by a gentleman called Barry and his daughter. The garden was huge, as was the house, but the garden was where the magic really lay. Okay, I really don't like interrupting a story here, but I'm going to because I just want to say If anyone has any details, any websites,